Everyone at the gas station turned their heads when the little rusted-out car pulled in. It wasn't just old. It looked like it barely made it down the road without falling apart. The dull paint was chipped, the windows had smudges, and the bumper hung slightly off one side. A few teenagers standing nearby snickered. One of them even pulled out his phone to take a picture, whispering something like, "What kind of person still drives that?" To them, it was just another beat-up car, probably owned by someone down on their luck or just trying to get by. But they had no idea who was behind the wheel. The girl stepped out slowly, not reacting to the whispers or the quiet laughter. She wore a simple hoodie, jeans, and a pair of worn-out sneakers. No flashy makeup, no designer bags, nothing that screamed attention. If anything, she blended into the background. Some people judged her instantly, assuming she was just another young woman struggling to make ends meet. One of the teens muttered, "Must have borrowed her grandma's ride." They all laughed, but she didn't flinch. With quiet confidence, she started pumping gas, not once glancing at the growing group now watching her. Something about her calmness didn't match the car she drove. One older man nearby looked at her and then at the car, puzzled. There was something off, not in a bad way, but in a way that didn't quite add up. She didn't carry herself like someone defeated or embarrassed. She looked intentional. One of the teens couldn't help himself. He walked over, phone still recording, and said, half joking, "Hey, you know there's a car show a few blocks down. Think they'll let that thing in?" She turned slowly to face him and smiled, not with anger but with something close to amusement. Then she said just 6 words. "Let's see what it can do." Before anyone could respond, she opened the door, slid behind the wheel, and started the engine. And that's when things started to shift. Because this wasn't just a story about a beat-up car. It wasn't even just about being judged too quickly. This was about what happens when people assume too much and notice too little. And as the engine growled louder than anyone expected and the car rolled out with a purpose, the laughter stopped. What they didn't know was who she really was, and what she was about to show them next. The car pulled out of the gas station, slowly at first, its engine rumbling in a deep, almost intimidating way that didn't match its scrappy appearance. The group that had been laughing now stood silent, their eyes fixed on the taillights as she turned the corner. Something about the way she drove off made people uneasy. Not scared, just curious. It was like watching a scene in a movie, right? Before everything changes. What they didn't know was that her name was Maya. 26 years old, soft-spoken, and always the type to stay under the radar. She wasn't into showing off, didn't care much for attention. But what set her apart was her past, one that no one at that gas station would have ever guessed. She had grown up around engines, her father a skilled mechanic who once built race cars for a local team. By the time Maya was 12, she could take apart an engine faster than most grown men. Her weekends were spent under hoods and behind the wheel of practice cars on back roads. But that part of her life had been kept quiet for years. After her father passed unexpectedly, Maya had walked away from it all. The garage was sold, the tools packed away, and the only thing she kept was that old car, his last project. Everyone else had overlooked it because of its looks, but they didn't know what was under the hood. It wasn't just a car. It was a machine built with precision and power, something that could still leave modern cars in the dust if driven by the right hands. And Maya? She had those hands. Back at the gas station, the teen who'd mocked her still had his phone out, replaying the short clip he captured. He showed it to his friends, and they all leaned in, noticing the way the car had roared as it left, the way she had smiled, like she knew something they didn't. One of them asked, "You think she's a racer or something?" Another shrugged. "No way. Not in that thing." But the thing is, Maya wasn't trying to prove anything to them. She never had. She was heading to a local car meet that wasn't advertised publicly, a kind of underground scene where real gearheads gathered. No flashy spoilers or Instagram hype, just pure, raw performance. And tonight, she was finally ready to bring her dad's legacy back to life. The people at the station didn't know any of that. To them, she was just a girl in a junk car. But they were about to learn. Looks don't always tell the full story. And some stories, they're just getting started. You won't believe what happened when she arrived. The parking lot where the car meet was held was tucked behind an old warehouse on the edge of town. No signs, no lights, just the low rumble of engines and the smell of burnt rubber in the air. Cars lined up side by side, polished and gleaming under the dim glow of streetlights. People leaned against hoods, sipping from cans, talking shop, and eyeing every new arrival like they were sizing up competition. Maya pulled in slowly, her car coughing a bit before settling into a deep, idle growl. Heads turned. Some people chuckled quietly. One guy even whispered, "Wrong lot, sweetheart." She ignored it. She parked near the edge and got out, pulling, her hoodie up slightly to keep the focus off her face. But she knew she stood out. Everyone else was showing off, body kits, neon underglow, fresh paint jobs. Her car looked like it had been dug out of a scrapyard. Still, a few of the older guys raised their eyebrows when they heard the engine's tone. It wasn't just noise. It was tuned, clean, controlled. The kind of sound you only get from someone who knows exactly what they're doing. Across the lot, someone else was watching. A guy named Jay, known in the scene for his ego as much as his skills. He drove a sleek black Mustang with custom everything. He had a small crew, guys who hyped him up and posted every race online. When he spotted Maya's car, he laughed and said, "Who let that thing in? We doing charity runs now?" His crew laughed, but one of them, a quiet guy named Chris, didn't. Chris recognized the car, not from social media, but from years ago. He remembered hearing stories about Maya's dad and the legend of the ghost car that hadn't been seen since the old man died. He leaned in and muttered, "I think that's her." Jay raised an eyebrow. "Who?" "His daughter. The one who used to race." "She disappeared," Jay scoffed. "Doesn't matter. If she wants to run, I'll embarrass her. Easy clout." Maya stood near her car, arms crossed, watching as the races began. She didn't move, didn't speak, but inside, her mind was running, through gears, calculations, timing. She hadn't raced in years, not since everything changed. But tonight, something felt different. The air was thick, not just with fuel, but with something heavier. Expectation. She wasn't just here to race. She was here to prove something, not to the crowd, not even to Jay, but to herself. Still, the moment was building. And when her name finally got called, the real showdown hadn't even started yet, because Jay didn't know what was really under that hood. And Maya? She wasn't backing down. Not this time. Want to know what happens when she takes the wheel? Keep watching, to see how the night unfolds. The crowd began to shift as whispers spread across the lot. People moved closer to the makeshift strip that ran between two long warehouse walls. This was where the real showdowns happened, where respect was earned or lost in seconds. Maya leaned against her car, arms still crossed, eyes locked on the pavement ahead. Her name had just been called, and Jay was already revving his engine, taunting her from across the line. His black Mustang gleamed under the overhead lights, its exhaust spitting out bursts of flame with every press of the pedal. People cheered, some chanting his name. He was the favorite. He always was. Maya didn't say a word. She calmly opened her car door and slid inside, gripping the wheel with steady hands. The interior was plain, stripped of any extras. Just the essentials: tight steering, precision gauges, and a nitrous switch wired in by her father himself. Her heart pounded, but not from fear. It was focus. Years of silence, of holding herself back, had built up to this moment. And she wasn't here to impress anyone. She was here because she finally remembered who she was. Jay revved louder, motioning to his crew. "This won't take long," he said, smirking. "She won't make it halfway." More people gathered, phones out, filming, every second. The tension was thick. Maya looked over for just a second, meeting Jay's eyes through the windshield. Then she looked away, flicking a small switch beneath the dash. A soft blue light lit up on her console. No one noticed. Chris stood off to the side, arms folded, watching closely. He remembered the races her father used to win. Quiet, brutal, wins, where the car didn't just move, it tore through the track like it had something to prove. And now, standing here, it felt like the same energy had returned. Chris leaned over to someone beside him and said quietly, "This is going to be different." The starter stepped out into the center, holding up both hands. Maya gripped the wheel. Jay tapped the gas, inching forward with confidence. The crowd went silent. Just the sound of two engines, idling, waiting. The flag dropped, but the screen cuts to black. Not yet, because right here, this second, is where everything hangs in the balance. The reputation, the doubt, the judgment, her past and his pride, all of it. And when they finally launch off that line, nothing will be the same again. What happens next will leave the whole crowd stunned. Don't miss the race. That changes everything. Engines roared as the flag dropped, and both cars launched forward, like slingshots. For a second, Jay's Mustang surged ahead, tires screeching, the crowd erupting in cheers. Maya's car, though, didn't make a sound that screamed effort. It made a sound that signaled control. In the first few feet, it looked like Jay had it. But then, something shifted. Halfway down the strip, Maya's car surged forward with a sudden burst of speed that didn't make sense, not with the way it looked. Phones in the crowd caught the moment she pulled even, then passed him. Gasps followed. The Mustang's aggressive growl started to sound like frustration compared to the sharp, rising howl of her engine. Jay downshifted, fighting back, but something was off. His car started to shake slightly. He slammed the gear, pushing harder. And then, smoke. A thin cloud puffed out from the back of Jay's car. His tires lost grip for a split second. Maya didn't flinch. She stayed straight, steady, eyes locked forward. Her hands didn't even shake. She crossed the finish line just ahead, but instead of celebrating, she immediately slowed down and pulled to the side. That's when the second twist hit. Jay's Mustang didn't stop. It flew past the finish line, brakes screaming. His front right wheel wobbled, then snapped, sending the car veering off the edge of the makeshift strip. People scattered. Dust flew up. It wasn't a crash, but it was close. His car came to a halt sideways, lights still on. The crowd ran over, but Maya stayed in her seat, watching through her rearview mirror. Jay jumped out, slamming the door. He looked fine, but his pride was clearly shattered. His crew stood awkwardly behind him, no one sure what to say. That's when someone pointed out the obvious. His wheel assembly had cracked. Not from the race, but from earlier. Chris, walking over slowly, crouched near the Mustang and saw it. A hairline fracture in the rim, right near the bolts. It had been tampered with. Gasps rippled again. Now the focus wasn't just on the race, it was on who had touched the car. Jay turned, face red. Who messed with my ride? And just like that, the mood shifted again. Now it wasn't just about losing to the girl with the junk car, it was about sabotage. And the eyes that had been on Maya started to turn. Was she just here to race? Or was something bigger going on? Because if that wheel didn't fail by accident, someone had a plan. And the truth? It hadn't come out yet. The real story is just getting started. The tension hit a boiling point as Jay stood next to his damaged car, shouting at anyone who would listen. People surrounded him, confused and whispering. Accusations flew. Someone wanted me off. The track! He barked, pacing, fists clenched. Maya quietly stepped out of her car, not saying a word. All eyes shifted to her. The girl with the humble ride, the one no one took seriously an hour ago, was suddenly in the center of the storm. Chris stepped between them before things escalated. "Jay, you're not thinking straight. That wheel didn't just break. It's been cracked for a while," Jay snapped. "So you're saying I didn't check my own car? That's not a rookie mistake, man." But that's when Maya finally spoke. Calm, even, and direct. "I didn't touch your car. I don't need to. I beat you fair." Her voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the noise. "What happened to your car? That's your story, not mine." People looked at each other, uncertain. Then someone from Jay's crew pulled up a video, footage from earlier in the night. It showed Jay's own mechanic, hours before the race, struggling to fix something. He had rushed the job, tightening bolts with a torquey wrench, looking distracted. Jay grabbed the phone and watched in silence. The realization hit. His own team had failed him. No one sabotaged him, his ego did. He pushed for a race he thought he couldn't lose, overlooked the basics, and paid the price. The crowd began to murmur again, but this time the tone changed. Heads turned back to Maya, not with mockery, but with something else. Respect. Chris stepped forward. "You didn't just win tonight. You reminded everyone what this scene used to be about. Skill, not flash." Maya looked down at her car, smiled faintly. "It was never about showing off. It was always about driving with purpose." Just when it seemed like the night had settled, a new sound pierced the quiet. A deep, rumbling engine rolled into the lot. A silver car, low, sleek, unfamiliar, pulled up at the far end. The crowd turned again. The driver stepped out, helmet in hand. It was a woman, maybe in her 40s. She looked right at Maya and smiled. Someone whispered, "Wait, is that?" Chris answered, almost in shock. "That's her mom. She used to race before Maya's dad. Legend." Maya's eyes widened. She hadn't seen her in years. The crowd held its breath. One race had just ended, but a bigger story had only just begun. Want to know why she came back? The next chapter is where everything changes. For a few long seconds, Maya just stood there, frozen. The woman walking toward her, calm, confident, felt like a ghost from another life. Her mother hadn't stepped into a race scene in over a decade. After her father died, she disappeared from it all, leaving Maya to figure things out alone. And now here she was, like she'd never left, walking through the crowd that instinctively parted for her. They stopped a few feet apart. No one said anything. Then Maya's mom smiled gently and said, "Looks like you still remember how to drive." Maya smiled back, emotions catching her by surprise. "You taught me well." The crowd stayed quiet, unsure if they were watching a reunion or the beginning of something else. But it wasn't about another race anymore. It was about the full circle, about legacies, quiet strength, and unfinished stories finally meeting their end. Jay, still standing by his car, watched it all unfold. For once, he didn't say a word. No more jokes, no more shouting. Just a nod, barely noticeable, before he turned away. He knew he hadn't just lost a race. He'd lost the crowd's attention, and maybe even their respect. But sometimes that's what it takes to learn. Chris walked up to Maya and gave her a quick handshake. "You changed a lot tonight," he said. "Not just here. People are going to talk about this for a long time." "I'm not here for the spotlight," she replied. "Just wanted to drive my dad's car one more time." For real. As the lot began to empty and people headed home, Maya and her mom stayed, behind, sitting on the hood of the car, watching the lights fade. They didn't need to talk much. Just being there, together, was enough. Later, when Maya drove away, she didn't take the fastest route. She took the long way home, windows down, engine humming steady under the stars. Not to race, not to prove anything, but because the road finally felt like hers again. Back at the gas station where it all started, the same group of teens stood, replaying the video of her race over and over. One of them, quieter than the rest, said, "You never know who someone really is." The others nodded, and that was the truth of it. People mocked her humble car, but when they saw the driver, they understood. She was never just the girl in the rusted-out ride. She was a legacy, a story on wheels, and this was only the beginning of what she was truly capable of. Thanks for riding along. Subscribe for more stories that remind us not to judge by what we see, but by what we don't.